how does that apply to anybody, everybody? What is this thing, distinction, that, is it that each of us should have?
Yes.
So what is that?
Okay, let's say it like this. If I can enter into it from this perspective, the less people with distinction, the more or the broader the labor force.
Okay.
The more people with distinction, the less the labor force. People with distinction use their mind to think. People who fail to think subject themselves to those who do. Noah was building something that others should have appreciated, but because they had no personal distinction, they lacked purpose. And because they lacked purpose, they subjected themselves to being drowned in the flood. That's what life is. It's a flood. It's an alley of flooding events for those of us who never gained the reference of personal distinction.
Okay.
Those of us who gain distinction are found somewhere in a store on a shelf waiting to be purchased. Those who don't, we're just kind of out in society doing things at random, and we're like sitting ducks waiting on someone else to tell us what to do.
Okay.
Distinction, and that's why he says, where there is no vision, people perish. Now, God said that, which in essence means people in the kingdom, if they have no vision,
Right.
they're subject to perishing.
Yes, sir.
People with good jobs, saved or unsaved, black, white, yellow, red. Doesn't matter what their cultures are, what their classes are. You can happen up on wealth, but it does not, wealth external does not make you wealthy internally. You still don't know how to spend you. So
Right.
you end up like the prodigal son, taking the wealth and bringing yourself to the nothing that you have acquired in life because you still don't know how to see you.
So tell me, what do you think Noah, what space did Noah have to be in to hear God talk about, for the Lord to tell him about rain? I don't even know if the term rain,
It had not even surfaced.
hadn't been instituted, hadn't been.
No.
So there's this abstract, so to speak, thing that God is talking about, but Noah is in such a place of receiving that he can, I would assume, you tell me, visualize.
Right.
He can envision because of what what kind of place is that?
It's a place of open-mindedness, that's all. When you're open-minded, you're hungry. And when you're hungry, you're blessed and fortunate because that's the mind that God speaks to. Doesn't mean that you're full or you're filled. It means that you're open, you're hungry, you're void, you're empty. But you honor the fact that there's more to life. So you live in this desiring quest for more. It's a hunger, it's an insatiable appetite for more. And so then the Bible says, blessed are they that are hungry and thirsty for something more. Something that aligns with something greater. I'm saying it a little different. Rather than, we always go straight to church with everything we quote.
Right.
Blessed are they that are hungry and thirsty for right. We got to put it in church. Blessed are they, he says, they're going to be envied eventually. Enviable are those who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, for I empower them through their filling. I will fill them. So when you can acknowledge your hunger, God can acknowledge it as his responsibility to fill it.
So then what leads to a lack of hunger? What leads to people not understanding or the importance of, I guess, showing up hungry before God? What makes us think we don't have that need?
Preoccupation with life, consumption with things and people. not knowing how to properly function, and not getting involved with people or situational inquisitiveness, people who are inquisitive, desiring to do something different, or not allowing the environment to be a stimulus to a thought about something different than you're accustomed to. Being afraid to function around those who challenge you to be different.
And what about, is it also being afraid to function around people who don't expect more? Like, because
Yes.
you talk about the challenge,
Yes.
but sometimes it feels like there's more fear of not being average, normal.
There is a security, I talk about that in the book. There's a security that people have emotionally and psychologically with the ignorance of how to. Even though they have failed countless times, there is a security with familiarity that does not come with things that's unfamiliar. So they keep doing what doesn't work because they don't want to try something different. They're more afraid to try. It's called taking risk. And that's why a lot
And
of
you're
us...
all in all my questions.
Okay,
So, no.
Yeah, but
Talk,
you're good.
but it may come back up.
Okay.
I may have a different, but keep talking.
But it's the reason why a lot of us do not walk by faith, because nothing is going to challenge you to take risk like faith.
Okay.
I mean, faith has multiple definitions. I think I put them in the book. A lot of times people just say faith is the substance of things, hope for the evidence. There's a law of faith. There is, there's just so many avenues of faith that we have to reckon with. I think in that chapter I talk about everything faith. And so the reason why that's important is because the Bible says whatsoever is not of faith is sin. Now, it doesn't mean, like, there it is again, religiously, like I'm sinning because I'm not walking by faith. It means I'm depending upon my lower nature, which means that I have not subjected myself to God's way of doing and being. And I haven't learned to depend upon God. Okay. Whatsoever. So faith requires us to trust in the Lord, Proverbs 3:5, with all of our heart. It demands of us the substitution of our understanding, which is the only thing or all that we've acquired in life. So God is all that in a bag of chips. He wants you to trust in him over everything you've ever understood. And do not lean to your own, what you own, your own understanding. Now, if he takes a man's understanding, he's got to be God enough to really substitute swiftly, because we're blind and most miserable. Therein, I stumble upon the mysterion. Faith is blind if it doesn't have vision. And that's why God requires us, after Proverbs 29 and 18, to do what Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 4 says. Now write it. God says, preoccupy yourself with the elaborations of the mind that I'm spilling over from your spirit into your soulical man. I want you to spend time with it until you gain the language, gain the intellect, I need you to purchase this from within yourself, because if you don't buy it from within yourself, you won't know how to spend it when it's time to sell it. That's real estate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So in writing the vision
Yes.
and making it plain, do you write the vision once?
Oh, no. You write it until... I do a little analogy at my church where when I'm talking about vision, I've got 10 grandchildren. So I start with the youngest. I'm the man writing the vision. I'm sitting down. He says, make it plain. That word plain means so that everybody, the novice, even the novice reader, can scat by, see it, and run. Now, he doesn't say walk. Right. They can read it and run, which in essence means they're going to leave your presence very insightful about what to do next. So it means that God wants you to be a great planner, but he wants to plan through you by walking you down through the telescopes the telescopic chambers of your own mind and the elaborations of your own spirit. He wants you to spill it out. There's this connection between the mind and the hand that makes the man technologically savvy.
Okay.
When one can record what God is saying in the mind with the hand, it gives birth to what's called procedural grace.
Okay.
Procedural grace is the ability then for a man to take what was complicated and difficult and walk it out with simplicity, because by the time his hand writes what his mind has shown him, Noah with the ark, build it, he gives him all of the elaborations, and eventually he has detail to the point of a nail, one single nail. And by the time Noah is finished, now he's made it so plain till those sons of Noah would go nowhere but with dad, because they can see as well as he.
Okay.
When my grandchildren walk by and look at what I have written on my pad, they look at it and know exactly where granddad is headed and what their part consists of.
Okay.
So not only am I a man of distinction, I've given them distinction as well. So, now, here's what he really means, though. He wants you to he wants you to understand, in your patience you possess your soul. Most of us are so consumed with life.
Let's say it again.
He wants us to understand that, in your patience you possess your soul.
Okay, break it down.
Most of us are so consumed with life and so consumed by life till we think if we don't hurry up and get to that nothing first, that we're not going to be made better, even though every time we get to it, it never makes us any better. If anything, it makes us worse, or it lets us be the same. What vision was supposed to be was something that prioritized, that when we prioritize it, we're prioritizing it because we refuse to go out in life as someone without distinction, because things out in the environment without distinction can be purchased for almost nothing. Okay, let's do this. Give some distinction. Calvin Klein, you see a lot of people wear them. But by the time you get to Louis Vuitton, one is just as distinct as the other, but one is more for the general population. The other is for a higher echelon, right?
Yes.
No problem with either. It's just that those who desire to just be common, they don't purchase different. So you can buy them for practically the same thing. You can buy all the commons. Now, I pray that this word common, the way I use it, is not an insult.
Right.
But it can be used for motivational purposes. I don't care, because at the end of the day, too many of us have no aspiration to be ourselves. It's so important that we learn our difference and begin to bed it and abide in it, so that as we are embellished by it, we become the prized essence that God intended for us to be all along. Because if you're not careful, God will literally make a promise to you, take you to the fulfillment of it, put you right beside it, and if your mind, the part you do with vision, write it down, make it plain, regurgitate it. Listen, tear it up, get familiar with all of the language, deal with all of the intellect, word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. Keep breaking it down. Succession. Go back. Cognate. What was the generation of that word? What generated? How did those two words syntactically arrange themselves together? What makes them the construct proficient for that sentence? Before we go to the next, and you keep laboring with it until you develop a sense of intimation that births priority. And while it's birthing priority in you, it drafts parameters for your functionality. It stains your consciousness to a point where you could care less what people think about you. You could care less about how life deals with you, because you know who you are. And when you know who you are in the eyes of God, the first thing you understand is why you can trust Him. with all of your heart, because he allows you to go through tests and trials. And that's why he says the trial of your faith is much more precious than gold. He allows you to go through tests and trials that reflect the parameters of vision that's been drafted for you, that as long as you operate within it, you get better, you grow, you increase, there's a sense of peace and authenticity that's born in you. And here's what happens. See, a lot of people have no real peace either, because peace is a result of your authenticity. Mm-hmm. The closer you are to your authenticity, the closer you are to peace.
Yes,
the farther you are away from your authenticity, the more difficult it is for you to get peace. So you can do a lot of things, and they seem to be things that are manifestations of a reality that God desires that you participate in, and you're the only person that gets no fulfillment from it because it really wasn't for you.
Right.
Life without distinction means then that we do a lot of things that's just simply not us.
Okay.
And God never required them of us.
Right. So even when you talk about and I guess that distinction is then poured out onto the paper.
Yes.
As you write that vision.
And it comes back. It reflects, yes, ma'am. It's God talking to you. It's Joshua 1:8. It's the fulfillment of it. It's nothing but vision. It's how to. Then shall you make your own way prosperous, and you shall have good success. Here he just takes Joshua and says, say it until your mind catches it, then meditate on it until your life absorbs it, and then put your hand forth, and I'll bless whatever you set it forth to do, because all your hand does is call out of you what has already been developed inside of you.
Okay. Because it feels like, even as you talk, and it's almost like I wish I could press pause.
Okay,
Because
I'll
no, I'm not saying you. It's just so full. What you're saying is almost like the sentence demands a selah, just to like grasp it. So it feels like with our vision, and when God speaks this thing to us, it feels like so many of us, because we can't see ourselves being what he said, there's no pondering.
That's good.
It's like, oh, I'm tripping. And people kind of shut it down because those are pipe dreams, and so there's no sitting with it.
That's a good word. There's no sitting. Go ahead. That's good. I like that.
And so when you find yourself in that place of seeing yourself somewhere else, doing something else, looking another way, sounding another way, then it's like, oh man, come back to reality. But we miss that is reality, correct?
That was your call to the real you. That's how God called me to me. That's why I walk in so much peace. And that's why I walk in such fearlessness. You can't do nothing to me greater than the God who's responsible for my existence. Mm-hmm. Fear not man, who can only kill the body, but he can't do more than God allows.
And so what place does fear have in keeping us out of, first of all, like even writing it? Because I feel like I'm speaking from a place of knowing that there are people who would never even want others to know. You think you can do what?
Yeah, that's it.
You think you're going where? So they're afraid to write. They're afraid to speak.
Right.
Would never dare say. What kind of?
So the first reference to faith, God allows us to see it so phenomenal and so astronomical that the man is literally left to himself with his family alone. Nobody else. No friend. We don't know his brothers, his family. Nobody befriends Noah. Nobody befriends the children of Noah. Nobody befriends the families of his sons. Why? Because all of y'all crazy. Who is going to build something that ain't never been done for what? Now, scientists will call that tapping into the ether, learning how to draft from nothing something, and from something more, nothing. So there's no limits. And what they've literally done is given us this, they've given us these, and we use them without even a mind's notion of how in the world did I get this. It came from the genius mind of man. Same thing lives in you. Here's the problem. Jesus said, strive to enter in at the straight gate. Now listen at the language he uses. For straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leads to Zoe, God's way of living. And few there be that find it. But because broad is the way and wide is the gate that leads to destruction, many there be which enter in thereat. So we find ourselves back to Edison's quote. 5% of the people think. 10% of the people think they think. But the other 85% would rather die than think. So we begin to see how selectively small categorically the group is that is going to be in pursuit of purpose. That is why so many people need a hand out. Do you realize, Marcy, most of the people that are homeless in America are homeless by choice?
Yes, sir.
That's a hard statement for a lot of us to buy. They are homeless because they do not desire to be put under pressure for existence. Here's something I learned years ago, working with the homeless daily. There's a lot of homeless people mentally in church and on the jobs right beside us. It just so happens that someone gave them a privilege that they would not have given themselves. And all they have done since they have been working or part of that workforce is giving all of their faculty, their time, and their thinking to the use of another that leaves them infuriated because they constantly feel underappreciated, simply violated, and never given a significant enough wage to make a difference. That's the way of society. So I talk about it in the book some too, because I needed to know how the society got like this and why was it so easy for man to just make guineas out of so many of us. Because 5% of the people think. Evidently, thinking is hard work. That's why so few people do it.
Yes, sir.